Hello, everyone. If anybody's joining us a little early today. Hello. Wonderful. So we are in the Caring for Bodies panel session right now. We'll get started in just a moment. We're just going to see if anybody's going to trickle in, and we'll get started in just a moment to introduce our wonderful panelists today. Awesome. All right. So hello, everyone, and welcome to our Girls in STEAM event. Today, we are going to be doing a Caring for Bodies panel, and we have a couple of wonderful mentors who are going to be joining us. Before we do begin, I do want to acknowledge that Science World is located on the traditional and unceded territory of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. So today's panel is once again called Caring for Bodies. And we have a couple wonderful mentors who are going to be joining us in just a moment. So what we'll do is we'll have them introduce themselves, and then there'll be opportunity to ask them questions and have a bit of a discussion about the careers that they have, which is really exciting. So if you have any questions, you can feel free to put those in the chat, and we'll send those off to our mentors and get some answers for you. So our technician today is Chelsea, and Chelsea will be monitoring the chat and can help with any technical issues that you might have. So feel free to put those in the chat if you're having any technical issues, and Chelsea will help you out. I do want to remind everybody that's participating today that we do want to keep our comments and questions respectful and on the topic that we're being discussed. Wonderful. All right, so it is time to meet our mentors. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with a brief introduction, and we'll get our mentors to tell us what their favorite part of their career is. So if you want to turn on your cameras, and we'll pop you up on screen, we have Paige Kendall, Tingwei Wong, and Ella Chan joining us here today. So why don't we start off with Ella? Do you want to tell us a little bit about your career and what you enjoy most about it?
Definitely. So hi, I'm Ella. I'm currently in medical school at UBC. I'm in my first year, and I'm really enjoying it. It's really cool to be learning about like all the different parts of the body and seeing how like my science background links in with medicine and like working with people. So I'm really enjoying that. But outside of medical school, I work in science communication. So I've been running a YouTube channel called Sci-Files since I was 12 years old. And we're even recently doing some promotions with Nepcure Kidney International, which is a kidney foundation, and trying to promote them as well. So I have a little bit of like medicine side and a little bit of the science communication side.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Ella. Let's go over to Paige. Do you want to introduce yourself, Paige?
Yeah, thanks, Kiki. I'm Paige. I'm a family doctor here in Vancouver. I think my favorite thing about my job is the relationships I get to build with patients, and also just being part of milestones on a daily basis. Whether it's telling someone they're pregnant for the first time, or their cancer's cured, or just what they were worrying about, what is actually nothing to worry about at all. I think it's pretty special that I get to be such an integral part of someone's life on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, that's so fascinating, being a part of those milestone moments. I've actually never thought of a physician being in that kind of role before. That's really interesting.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's humbling.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. Thank you, Paige. And Tinghui, could you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Tinghui. I'm a locum surgeon, so I usually go to relieve colleagues of mine who work in rural parts of Canada and need a break, or if they have been ill. And the favorite part of my job is being part of a team. So, when you watch TV depictions of physicians and surgeons, it's usually, you just see one person, but in fact, it takes a village to get a patient from A to B. And we all have our individual skill sets. So I like feeling like I'm part of a team, and everyone's doing our part to get the patients along in their journey.
Wonderful. Yeah, there's so many different jobs that you may not think of that are involved in the medical field, and all of them coming together to then provide care for a patient. That's really interesting. Thanks, Tinghui, and everybody for introducing yourselves. Now, I noticed that all of you have a sort of communication aspect to your roles. You know, Ella, with your YouTube channel, and then with research, communicating with patients, writing essays and poems. So I'm wondering how that sort of communication piece fits in with being a medical professional. And maybe Tingwei, would you be able to respond to that?
Well, I have to be honest with you. I still remember growing up that when I was a kid, I was a terrible communicator. You know, I had all these ideas and I expected people to just read my mind and like, hey, you know, I meant that. And that's not real life, unfortunately. So I remember in school, with the help of friends who, you know, very patient friends who would tell me what I missed out when I told them something, I would slowly reflect a bit more. Like if I needed to get a message across what I was missing, and try to see, you know, a complex issue from somebody else's viewpoint. And I think in many aspects of science and medicine and other related topics, it's so important to try and get that amazing, brilliant idea you think you have across to another person who, you know, may have no idea what you're talking about. It's something that I really appreciate, that I've had friends and mentors who pointed out to me, wow, you know, you were speaking 1,000 words per minute. I think I got 20%. It's something that I worked on when I was younger, and what became essential for you know, surviving became almost like a hobby, really, when I started to write articles for journals and for patient outreach magazines and things like that.
Yeah, wonderful. And Ella, you sort of had the sort of opposite trajectory, where, you know, you're starting off as with this YouTube channel and communicating the science, and then wanting to go into medicine. Yeah, could you tell us a little bit more about your sort of science communication journey?
Yeah, so I started doing science communication when I was 12, just because I was really excited about the science that I was learning. So it wasn't, I think, a conscious decision to be like, no, I'm going to become a science communicator. It was more like, I like YouTube videos and I like science. So here's a way that I can put those two things together. And so I think that growing up, I was just like really interested in science. And so I just wanted to share what I thought was interesting with other people. But sort of since I was an undergrad and now that I'm in medical school, I sort of see the communication piece in a little bit of a different way. We're learning a lot about communication skills in first year. And so hearing about the different ways you talk to patients and how you should use like different language when you're talking to different people, I think it's really interesting to see how a lot of the science communication that I was doing translates, because I've spent a lot of my career kind of thinking of a scientific concept and then trying to explain it in terms that little kids will understand. And so there's sort of that knowledge translation piece, which I think works pretty well both in medicine and in science communication.
Awesome. Yeah, and Paige, as a practicing physician, you know, Ella's in school, and then does that sort of translate to your daily work there? What Ella just said?
I just touching base on what Ella just said. Mm-hmm. I find it quite fun every day that I can explain conditions or blood work in kind of lay people's terms, that I can just say, yes, this blood work that you saw online was 1 point over and is in red, but I'm not concerned about it for X, Y, and Z reasons to my patients. But then I also get to see the flip side of it, where sometimes I need to phone a friend, which is my specialist friends like Dr. Wong, where if I've seen something on a scan or if I'm concerned about someone after I've examined them, I'll phone a friend and talk to a specialist. And there's been a few times where I've had to be like, I really appreciate you taking all this time to just explain it to me, but I did not understand a single word that you said, because the specialists know a lot about very specific things, whereas a generalist, I know a bit about a lot of things as a general practitioner, that I've had to say, okay, can you please break it down for me so I can communicate to my patients in ways that they understand, but I also need to ask my very, very smart colleagues just to break it down a little bit further for me, which it's been fun for them and for me, I think.
Very cool. And how did you, sort of all three of you, choose sort of whether you wanted to be a generalist or wanted to be a specialist? How did that kind of decision come to be? Maybe we could start with Paige, since you just said that you were a generalist.
Yeah, I love the flexibility of being a family doctor. The nice thing is no 2 days can look alike if I didn't want them to. I can spend time in the emergency room. I can spend time in the operating room helping out the surgeons. I can spend time on the palliative care ward helping people be comfortable at the end of their life, or I can spend time in the office. And it just gives me the flexibility to shape my practices as I want it to. I'm not at the mercy of getting allocated OR time, operating room time, like some of the surgeons are. So I had a pretty good idea from the get-go that I wanted to be a family doctor. My mom's a family doctor as well, and I just love the kind of passion that she had for it. And then I did lots of my rotations in medical school, and that just sort of solidified that. And I'm also a locum like Dr. Wong. I don't have my own clinic. I don't have my own patients attached to me. So if I want to go on holiday, I can go on holiday and not need to worry about finding coverage. Or if I want to go work in Nunavut, I can go work in Nunavut and not need to worry about finding coverage. So the flexibility at the end of the day is priority for me right now. And in some days I might have my own practice, and I expect that I will. But as someone who's only been practicing for about 5 years now, the flexibility is key for me at the moment.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks. And Tinghui, since you are on the other side as a specialist, why did you want to go into that specialized medicine?
Well, I have to say I need to take a step back, and I don't think any of us are. I think it's a false dichotomy. And sorry to use a big word, but I think there's no such thing as generalists and specialists. I know we take specific exams, and I'll give an example. My sister is a family physician, and she was rural for many years until the kids came along and they moved to a bigger city. And I think it's more like, we're all, it goes back to my comment in the beginning about being part of a team. We occupy specific parts of the team. And there are things that I have to ask my family physician colleagues, what am I supposed to do about this? And it goes both ways. So to me, family medicine is a specialty that is a specialty just like mine. There's a lot of things that I need to ask a family physician about. So I'm sorry, it's not really answering the question, but
no, that's wonderful.
I just see it differently. We occupy different parts of the healthcare system. One important thing I mentioned to some medical students who are considering different career pathways is that for a lot of us, family medicine is the backbone, and we rely so heavily on the family physician. And I'm always a little bit more cautious if I'm seeing a patient who says that I don't have one. So we are all part of the machine. We're all part of this large animal that is called healthcare.
Awesome. Yeah, I love that. All of the different parts of the greater picture of healthcare working together. That's really wonderful. Thank you. Ella, I'm wondering what you're sort of most excited about to be entering into this profession of going into being a part of that medical team. Is there anything that you're particularly excited about?
Yeah, I'm really excited to see how the team works together. So right now, because I'm in first year, we're mostly doing like lecture-based work. But just hearing like you guys talk about the different like team dynamics, I'm really excited to see what it's like in person and like hands-on version. But yeah, I'm really interested to see like the different things the different specialties have, but also how general practice works. And so yeah, right now I'm just open to everything and looking to explore different things. Yeah, it's all very exciting.
Wonderful. Oh, thank you, everyone. Yeah, a bit of a different question here. I'm wondering, a lot of our folks who are watching this are young folks who are looking into, what sort of careers might they want to do. And so if you were to look back at your, 14-year-old self, would you have any advice or any words of wisdom for, figuring out if you want to go into medicine or go into, science communication or anything along those lines? Ella, since you're, you just spoke a little bit, why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, that sounds good. So I think I'm thinking back to when I was like 12, 13, 14, I was just really excited about science. It was like the first couple of years that I had science as a class instead of just like having it as part of other subjects. And I was so excited to learn about the different things. And so I always knew that I wanted to go into science just because it's something that I found really interesting and exciting. But I also really liked doing like digital illustrations and video editing. And so when I kind of was able to pair those two together, that's how the YouTube channel kind of got started. But I think that medicine wasn't something that I was always sure that I wanted to go into. But as I got older and I saw like the applications that your science could have to people's lives and that connection, that was what really made the difference for me. So I think that if I was to give my 14-year-old self some advice, it would just be to keep my options open, to explore different things, to talk to different people, to talk to people who are older than you in school, but also like who are in university or who are in medical school or who are doctors, to see what their lives are like, and learn from them, because that's definitely what I did. I reached out to a lot of different mentors, and that's kind of how I got on my journey.
Wonderful, and very applicable to the folks who are watching right now with these wonderful mentors who are joining us. Awesome. Paige, do you mind sharing a little bit?
Yeah. I did not have a YouTube channel when I was 12, so I think I just want to, Ella, you're spectacular. I very much admire that. I think when I was at that age, I used more of a process of elimination when trying to figure out what career path I was going on. My mom has always said I could talk to a wall, like I can chat to anyone who will listen, and I love to develop relationships with people. And biology just came quite easily to me. I was never one to jump at the homework if I had to write an essay or do math, but when it came to science, I was always excited to learn and always wanted to learn more. I was very lucky that my school had quite a few kind of extracurricular activities around sciences and medicine. Like I could do basic life support and first responders, where we were at the soccer games in case someone rolled their ankle. I thought I was much more important than I actually was at the time, but it was very fun when I was 16 years old. So yeah, just touching base on what Ella said again, just kind of keeping my options open. But I also just recognized what brought me joy, and that was kind of science and people, that I knew I didn't want to. I could not do things with my hands very easily. So I knew surgery wasn't going to be like my option for me, or I knew I wasn't going to be writing essays all day or going into law school. So yeah, keeping my options open, but also just like finding out what brought me joy is kind of where I've ended up today. And it's, I think it's been a good choice for me.
That's wonderful to hear. It's always amazing when your career can bring you joy and you find that out. So that's really wonderful. Thanks, Paige. Yeah. And how about you, Tinghui?
So this is difficult because I think among the group, I'm the one who's furthest away from having been 14. So I have to dig really deep for this question. So one thing that does come to mind is that so I went to school in Singapore, and when I was 14, I had a choice between going for French immersion in France and touring with the student orchestra performing in outside Singapore. And it was a very close choice because both of them seemed things that I wouldn't be able to do again. I ended up choosing touring with the orchestra, which was nice. What I do remember is several years later, in our French exam, the passage we were supposed to write about was workers going on strike in France. Now, being in Singapore, I had never heard of a strike, and I could not deal with that part of the exam. And now I live in Canada. I married a Canadian and we moved over. And when I think back of, between those two skills that I chose, between playing music in an orchestra and getting my French better, given how many times I go to a remote area in Canada that's Francophone, I sometimes think, well, maybe I should have gone for that French immersion at 14. But now I know the word in French for strike, so I'm okay now. But I think one take-home message is that we often can't really tell how our lives will turn out. And a lot of communication that we've been talking about is also contextual. So like Paige works in Vancouver as well as in Nunavut, and I've been working at least 3 provinces, and there are always things specific to where we are living that might not exist somewhere else, and that might be surprising. Like right now I'm locuming in a place where it's minus 40 degrees at night. It means that if I want to send my patient home, after a minor surgery, I have to think very hard about whether the car will start, which I wouldn't have to think in Vancouver most of the time. So I think it's hard to know, at 14, if some of the decisions that we think are so major are going to affect us later. But I don't think, I think it, as Paige says, do what gives you joy. And it's okay if you miss a few opportunities here and there. You can always learn the French word for strike later on.
I love that. Yeah. And it seems like the common theme with, all 3 of you is that, you're keeping your options open. You're looking at all these different things that you just enjoy doing, whether it's playing in the orchestra or doing YouTube, whatever it might be, and just sort of following those things that you really enjoy, and it might lead you down many different paths. So that's really wonderful. So Tinghui, you touched a little bit about, these different areas, contextualizing your work in terms of different locations. I wonder, Ella, if you could touch on a little bit, since you do things on the internet and you do things in person, how might you change how you communicate on the internet versus communicate in person?
That's a tricky question. I think online, it's good to bear in mind that everything's pretty much scripted, right? You can do as many takes as you want. Panels like this are live, but on YouTube videos, you can sort of edit your response a little bit more. So it's a little bit easier to communicate your ideas clearly. But when you're in person, you have to think a little bit more on your feet and try and figure out what you want to say and how you want to say it best. So yeah, I can't really think of any other specific examples of the difference in communication, but yeah, just having to sort of balance that like very scripted version versus something that you have to kind of come up with on the spot.
Yeah. And Paige, with your sort of back and forth between rural and urban settings as well, have you noticed any big differences in how you work in a rural setting versus an urban setting?
Yeah, like the main thing that comes to mind is resources. In Nunavut, in Iqaluit, which is the capital where I work, we don't have a ICU, an intensive care unit. So if we need to put a breathing tube down someone's throat, they need to be flown to Ottawa, which is about a 2.5-hour plane ride. So I don't do any emergency medicine up there. So I'm not the one making that call. Thank you. I will leave that to the experts. But even so, if I need to phone a friend, like the specialist I was talking about earlier, they're down in Ottawa. They're not down the street like they are here in Vancouver. That I've had to send, I think maybe 4 patients over the past 3 years directly from my clinic to a plane in Ottawa. So even though I'm not doing emergency medicine, I still see some things in my clinic that I'm not used to seeing. And I've phoned many ambulances in Vancouver to take someone down to St. Paul's or VGH, and I'm very fine with that if they need to hang out with me for 15 minutes until the ambulance gets there. But when someone needs to wait a few hours, or if there's a snowstorm that they need to wait a couple of days to get down to the ICU in Ottawa, that's very nerve-wracking. But yeah, mainly resources. and kind of access to healthcare. But again, I feel very supported with the specialist down in Ottawa when I am working remotely. I am very lucky when I work up there.
Awesome. And that sort of plays into the conversation that was going on earlier about how everybody's working as a team, even
Absolutely.
if you are,
I feel very, very supported. They know I'm up there with nothing but a scan to be done. So they're very receptive, and they're super, super helpful. And like Tingwei was saying, like the other doctors up there are super supportive of everyone, that if I needed help, I know someone would be there right with me.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's wonderful. Now, in terms of, as a career physician, and, all of you have many different facets of your lives that you participate in, you're not just a doctor or not just a med student. How do you keep your career and also have sort of a life of your own? Is there any strategies for, if in case you get burnt out, or if the medicine is a challenging job, any strategies for keeping your own personal life still alive?
I can touch on that a bit.
Yeah, go for it.
I really struggled going into medical school. I did it a bit differently than what Ella did, and I'm not sure what Tingwei did in Singapore, but I actually chose to go to the UK for medical school right when I finished high school. So I went over when I was 17, and biology came easy to me in high school, and then medical school I really, really struggled with. And I kind of didn't develop enough kind of coping mechanisms or healthy coping mechanisms at the start, where I just kind of felt bombarded, and I really struggled. And burnout is a huge thing, because you're going into medical school classes where your colleagues are the top of their class and are spectacular people, and then you kind of feel like a very small fish in a big pond. That now that I'm working, I've made it a very, very active part of my everyday life to put myself and my mental health and my physical health first. The way that it works here in Canada is I get paid for every patient that I see. So I've made a note that if it means that I work for one less hour a day just to go work out or go play on my soccer team or go for a walk with my dog and my parents, I need to make that sacrifice, because making that little bit of extra money right now I cannot sacrifice that, my own mental health and physical health for that. And it's taken me a little bit of time, even being a practicing physician, to sort of appreciate that. So yeah, burnout is huge in practice, especially kind of in people that work remotely and rurally, that I've really, really made it an active, conscious effort to make sure that I just don't develop those unhealthy coping mechanisms again.
Oh, did we lose Kiki?
Kiki might be gone. Do either of you ladies want to touch on this?
I'm happy to jump in. So for me, I'm still in medical school, as we mentioned. So I've been trying to balance different activities in between classes and in between doing exams and homework. But what I think works best for me is really scheduling in that time to go work out, or the time to go on a walk or something like that, just so I have some sort of balance in my day. And so I think that really having that scheduled time has really helped me.
So something that struck me when both of you were speaking was that when we apply to medical school, it's an unwritten rule that medical school is asking for well-rounded individuals who have more than just good grades. And then you enter medical school and you don't have time to do anything else. And it's kind of ironic.
Yeah.
And now, with the benefit of looking back after, I've been a physician for more than 25 years. And I realized that part of the balance that Paige mentioned was also letting go of the fact that you can't be superhuman. And you don't have to be. You can prioritize the things that, as Paige says, bring you joy. So if you had 10 hobbies and competitive, 3 competitive sports before you went to medical school, and you end up, just going for a jog with your best mate once a week, because medical school is so time consuming, then it's not failure. It's not failure. And it's something that it's ironic, because a lot of us assume that to get in medical school, we have to, win an Olympic medal and get a Nobel Prize and then get in. But no, we're human.
Agree. Well said.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry for jumping out there for a second. Ella, did you get a chance to speak on this one? Yeah, wonderful. Sorry, I missed that. Awesome. I wonder I think that's really wonderful advice for people who are going into the field as well, to be able to know that, you don't have to do everything, and to make sure you take care of yourselves as well. I'm wondering if there's any misconceptions about your career that you have, that you want people to know, or misconceptions or common misconceptions that people might have about being a doctor or being in med school or being a YouTuber as well. Yeah, Ella, did you want to start us off?
Sure, yeah. I'm just trying to think of a misconception for all those different parts. But I think for medical school, like we talked about, I think that a misconception I had, at least when getting in, is that I had to have all these activities that align really well with healthcare. Like I had to have all these papers on medicine. I had to do all this work in the healthcare field, and I actually didn't have time to do a lot of that because I was working on these other projects. I was working for Genome BC, doing science communication stuff for them, and working on my YouTube channel. And then I applied, and I was like, "There's no way I'm going to get in. I don't have anything to do with healthcare." But I think that something that I learned was that they're looking for people who can have translatable skills too. And so maybe that's one misconception that I had, is I thought that in order to go into medicine, you had to be from a medical background. But I think that coming from a different background often gives you unique perspectives on communication and on video development. And since I've been in med school, I've actually helped produce a couple of different videos for different projects, just because it's a skill that I have that not all of my colleagues have. So it's an interesting sort of balance there. And then with YouTube, I don't make as many videos as some other YouTubers might, but I try to do them all in the summer. But it is a lot of fun, but it's also a lot of work. And I think that maybe people don't know how much time editing takes behind the scenes. So maybe that's my misconception. I feel like it takes at least double the amount of time to edit than to film.
Right. Yeah. I can imagine that would take a lot to, get all the correct pieces in orders, get those smooth transitions and everything. Awesome. And did either of the two of you have any misconceptions that you've commonly heard about your jobs?
I think there's the number of times I'm on the phone with a patient and they've asked me something, or they have a question for me, and I need to say, I'm going to look into that and I'll give you a call back once I have time to kind of do some research or phone a friend. People are quite surprised, and they're like, "Oh, I just thought you would know about that." And it's like, I've actually never heard about what you've asked me about. So instead of giving you false information of what I think I heard in medical school 7 years ago, I just want to do my due diligence and do some research. And usually people are very receptive of that, and sometimes they're quite frustrated that I can't give them an answer right away. But people, I don't use Dr. Google. I have to go into the medical files and the textbooks and the specialist brains. So yeah, we don't know everything, and sometimes we need to phone a friend.
Mm-hmm. Man, just everything keeps on coming back to that teamwork, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. That I'm actually thinking about, asking questions to my own doctor and thinking, oh, they must have all of those answers just in their brain, but being able to use those tools.
Absolutely. I had a phone call with my own doctor 2 days ago, and I was like, I don't know the answer to this. I'm going to ask my GP that, because I don't know what to do with this with myself. And she didn't know either, so she's going to let me know.
That's great. Yeah, phone her team.
Yeah. Exactly.
Tingwei, did you have anything to add on the misconception front?
Well, I'm kind of showing my age, but when I was younger, people only saw George Clooney in ER. And so I don't look anything like George Clooney. So that was a bit of a problem. But now, thankfully, there's Grey's Anatomy, and there's more modern TV dramas on Surgeons Live. So it's it's not so how should I put it? It's not so the expectations of gender are not as strong as they were when I started out, I think. And it's now really quite common now to go to a hospital and find that I'm in an all girls team. Yeah, which is nice.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Thank you all. I know we only have about 5 minutes left. So I'm wondering if we can finish off our panel just with any cool projects that you're working on, anything that you're really excited about right now, or if you have anything else that you would just last words that you'd want to share with the folks who are watching. Ella, I know you've got a neat project on the go right now.
So currently what I've been working on is I submitted a video for this competition called the Project for Awesome. And it's a charity competition where you can submit videos and then people can vote on your video or on other videos to suggest which charity should be awarded some money. Anyways, so that's something that I've been currently working on, and I sent the link so it can be dropped in the chat. If you want to check that out, that's the video that I've made. You can vote for it there. So that's sort of what I'm doing, and that's again for Cure Kidney International, which is a kidney charity that helps support patients that have the same kidney condition as my younger brother. But outside of that, yeah, I guess I would just suggest that if you're interested in medicine or interested in science communication, that you should reach out to mentors, that you should try it out yourself, especially with YouTube. Like anybody can upload a video. So I would say if you're interested, just give it a go. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you, Ella. And what kind of work do you do for the charity that you're promoting?
Yeah, so I've done a lot of work with them in terms of video development. So I've made a couple of video activities on like how the kidney works as a filter, or different ways that patients can sort of interact with like household materials to do like little kidney experiments. So you can have a look there to see some of that.
Cool. Awesome. Paige, if you want to give us a little wrap up.
Yeah, I'm not doing anything like Ella. I've spent a lot of time in the past year doing a lot of vaccine clinics and helping out the nurses and the pharmacists giving out the vaccine, which has been kind of surreal being involved in a pandemic 2 years, like less than 5 years into practice. But I think just touching base on the flexibility of my job that I mentioned earlier, I'm learning to help out in the OR. So Tingwei sometimes needs a GP or someone else to help hold cameras or to cut things. So that's what I'm learning right now. I was in the OR till about 2 a.m. last night, which I find very fascinating. I could not stay vertical in the OR in medical school, meaning I fainted and I passed out a lot, but I've overcome that somehow, which I'm finding very, very fun. She also mentioned Grey's Anatomy. I've learned that it's not quite like Grey's Anatomy in the OR. There's a lot of sitting around waiting for things to happen. But yeah, I'm just learning a new skill, which I didn't think I would have in my life. And the opportunity came around and I was like, yep, I'll give it a go. And so it's a nice way to sort of get out of the office for a day again. Like I said, just kind of some flexibility, which I'm very excited about.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And Tingwei.
Oh, so I have a interesting project I'm working on that is a little bit unrelated. So my mom passed away after a long journey with dementia a few years ago. And of all things that I struggled with, I couldn't get her to rinse her mouth after brushing her teeth. So I've been working on with a team of engineers and prototyping experts and a plastic manufacturer on trying to invent a device that would help people, carers of people with my mom's disease, with rinsing. So it has nothing to do with surgery, although it was really helpful to have access to colleagues. And I think it goes back to what we talked about earlier on, is that you never know what kind of skills you need next time.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing all of your, diverse journeys and different areas within medicine with us. I found this a fascinating discussion, so thank you all. I think we are just about out of time, so I do want to thank you for joining us, and a huge thanks once again to our mentors for sharing their time and experience with us. So next up, we do have our closing game show, which is happening on the main stage screen. So be sure to head back over there to participate. participate. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks,
Thank
ladies.
you.
Thank you so much. Nice to meet all of you.